Hello and welcome to the Soulful Mamas podcast. I have a truly incredibly inspiring episode for you today. I bring to you Kylee Paki, and she shares with us a love story. And this love story transcends time, it transcends realms. You're taken on a journey of really feeling deep love and deep loss and navigating all the intricacies in between. I have in complete awe of this beautiful woman, and I'll let you listen and hear this beautiful story. Hi, welcome to the Soulful Mamas podcast.
Thank
Oh,
you. Thank you for having me.
well, you're so welcome, and yeah, this is a really special, really special interview, and we're going to do it a little bit differently. This is a love story. It's a story about love in all of its facets and meanings. And can you take us to the beginning of yours?
I can. Easter time, 2011, um, I had two choices of what I was going to do that weekend: go out of town with a friend, or go to my cousin's house, spend time with her family. She's got my three nephews and a niece, and had some other people coming over. And there was just something in me that was like, go to your cousins. You got to go to your cousins. And I was like, nah, but maybe I want it. No, go to your cousins. So, okay, I went to my cousins. And there, her brother-in-law arrived, Brad. And that, I guess, is essentially the beginning of this beautiful love story between us and others as it goes on. Um, yeah, I met this man who was just so thoughtful. He had the best manners. He took his shoes off every time he went inside because we did a few things that weekend all together. Never had his hat on when we were sitting at the table. Going into new places, he would say hello to everybody. Um, just the way that he would view the world was with this like magic and awe. Like he was just so amazed by things that we just don't even notice. Um, so I was intrigued and hooked really from that first moment. But there were a few, we won't call them red flags, but not ideals. And the one was he lived 6 hours drive away from where I was living. Um, and also he had a close relationship with my nephews and nieces, obviously being their uncle. And I was worried that if we went down that track together and it didn't work, how that would affect the kids. But again, that voice, just keep going. You're on the right track. Keep going with this. And so over about 4 months, we spent probably 12 days together, including that initial Easter weekend. And then he was moving towns. He quit his job, moved towns, moved in with me. Um, Yeah, and so we fell in love very fast, very deep. And we would always say to each other, like, it feels like I've known you forever. Like it's been such a short time, but I feel like I've known you forever. And that's because this isn't our first lifetime together. Um, and I just knew, like, he knew that, I knew that it was within us. And that's, yeah, it was just meant to be. And so it was, and it was beautiful. And um, we have two children together. Kanem came along first, and he like within 6 months of having this baby together, like Brad was the best father. If I wasn't breastfeeding, I wouldn't have seen my children much because he just doted on them. Like as soon as I'd finished feeding them, he would burp them. He was changing their nappies. He was making sure I was fed. Like he was so attentive and he was just so good during those times. And then we had a 6-month-old Kanan was a dream. He was just like the perfect child that encouraged us to have another. And so when Kanan was 6 months old, I found pregnant with Ryder. So yeah, when Ryder was born, Kanan was not quite 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, yeah, it was a really busy time. And then during that time, Brad was also working away. He was in the mines. So he would do 2 weeks away and 1 week at home. But that worked really well for us because when he was at home, he was at home. Like we had solid 1 week. Kids weren't at school at that age. Just it was like us, and that was our pack, and that's how we traveled. And our dog too. We have a dog, Tama, as well. That's our firstborn. That was our practice child. Um, yeah, and like with Brad, he really loved me, and I really loved him, and I still love him, and he still loves me. But um, I could walk into a room, and he zeroed in on me. He would make sure, like even when we're in a group, he would give me that look, like, you okay? He would come and check on me. I was his world. And then the children were our world and our dog was our world. And yeah, like I didn't have to be a cheerleader for myself, and um I didn't have to love myself even, because he did that so hard for me and I did that so hard back for him. And I knew him sometimes better than he knew himself. Like he'd be going through something and I'm like, it's because of this and this is what you need to do. And he'd be like, oh yeah, how do you know that? I'm like, because I know you. Because you're my person and I know you. And yeah. So we in October 2018, I picked up a practice of meditation. It was a gift to me for my 35th birthday. And we already, like, I had a life that I loved, but the practice of meditation just took it to another level. And for the next 2 months that followed, we were in this like blissful bubble of just enjoying each other so much more. And the world was so much richer. And yeah, I don't know. And I hold on to those times, and those are precious because of what was to come. Um, on the 2nd of January 2019, Brad was on shift change. So when you're out at site, you do a week of day shifts, then a week of nights, but in between the day and night shift, it's a shift change. And usually what they would do, those on shift change would get together, they'd have a few drinks, like they would sort of try and stay up a bit later in the night so that they could sleep during the day to get into their night shift. So Brad was on shift change and I woke up during the night feeling really restless. Like I don't know, there was something going on. I didn't know what it was. I just was not feeling comfortable in my body. But anyway, went to bed, back to bed with the kids. And we got up that day as usual. I'd sent Brandon an email because we had like these future plans that I needed to get. I was the doer in the relationship. So he was the ideas, I was the doer. I was sending that off to him. And then about half an hour later, after sending that email, I get a knock at the door. And it's just me home with my 2 kids. We're still in pajamas. Like it's a mess. But anyway, I open the door and there's 2 people standing out there and I don't know them, but I recognize that they're wearing shirts that had Brad's work logo on it. And I'm thinking, oh, this is really strange. What's going on here? And they tell me that Brad's been in a car accident. And I'm thinking, okay, we can deal with that. Tell me where he is. Tell me where he is so that I can go and be with him and we'll get through that together. but they let me know that he had died in that car accident. And so all of a sudden, these lifetime of plans that we had together, and even the plans that we had when he was coming, all the plans were gone. And that one knock at the door, our whole lives changed. And so what followed, day one of that was just I just wandered around and dazed and confused, really. But one thing that stood out to me was that we'd started the day, the house was a mess, there was no food, it was just me and the boys. By the end of the day, the house was full of people. It was tidy. Everything was happening around me. The fridge was full. We weren't alone. Our person wasn't there in his body anymore with us, but we weren't alone. And we went alone for a very long time, actually. Our support crew was just incredible. But what had stuck with me during that confused day, I'd been given some advice, and that was from someone that I really trusted. And she had said, honor your feelings. Like, whatever you feel or you don't feel, whatever it is, that's what you need to do now. You need to honor your feelings. And that was really powerful for me because it gave me permission that whatever I did was okay. And it's just what needed to happen. And so the first thing I did is I had this really heavy feeling, and I don't believe it was mine. I believe it was Brad's, this heavy feeling of like guilt around what had happened. And at this point, I didn't know too much. I just knew that he was in a car accident. He wasn't the one that was driving. There was another person in the car as well. He was the only person that was really injured, I think. Well, he was definitely the only person that died. And so I decided to reach out to those that were involved in the car accident. And I knew very strongly, like the strongest feeling I've ever had, that Brad held no blame towards the driver of the vehicle or anybody else that was involved in that situation. And it was my job to let them know that they were going to go on a journey and they were going to have a process of how they were going to deal with things, but they weren't to carry the thought that Brad was blaming them. And if Brad didn't blame them, I don't blame them either. And so I invited them to our house. At this point, Brad's still, so he was in a small town called Leonora, which is probably, I think, about 7 hours drive from Perth. So he was still there. They came to the house, and yeah, I just spoke with them. Like, I had my support crew, all the people that were there that wanted to be involved in this conversation, sat down with them and welcomed them to our home and let them know that, you know, the guilt of this is not yours to carry forward, like not from Brad and not from me. And that was my first task. I think that was day 2. And then day 3, there was always a heavy focus on the boys, but then there was a heavy focus on me and what I needed to do. And yeah, but coming to the boys, that was really tricky. So I've got Ryder, who's 1.5, who can, like, he can say some words, but I can't hold a conversation with him like I can calm him. But I'd made the choice that I was going to not crush their world straight away. I was just going to give a bit of breathing room so that I could get a plan on how am I going to tell my children what's happened, and how am I going to help navigate them through this when I've never been through anything like this before. And so we had that breathing space. And I think probably not even 24 hours, within 24 hours of the knock at the door, Kanem came to me and he said, I really want my dad. And I thought, okay, this is it. So I sat him down and I said, Mum's got really bad news. Dad's been in an accident and he died. And Kanem just said, what? What? He died? Why? And I said, I don't know. I don't know why, but Daddy died. And yeah, obviously he was gutted and shocked and processing that. And Ryder was around for this. Ryder was always around, but he didn't engage in the conversations like Kanem would. But I think it's really important with children. Like I, I was, I didn't go into huge detail.
Hmm.
I said clearly what had happened. Like, he didn't, I didn't want to use any other words, but Dad died. And then we had conversations like, because remembering he's 2 and he's almost 3 and a 1.5-year-old. And so we were talking about how your what happens when you die. And I'd actually gotten my mum to, in my little time of working out how I was going to deal with this, in little boy terms, I got my mum to find a dead fly. So that was see how the fly is dead. Like, here is the dead fly's body, because his spirit has left his body. And when your spirit leaves your body, it can never come back. And so then we talked about how there's no use for that body anymore because the spirit cannot come back. So now we need to look after that body and take care of it and bury the body. And that's what we did for the fly.
Mm.
And so that helped set them up for what was to come. And again, really careful with the words I use. So it wasn't Dad's coming home, it was Dad's body's coming home.
Mm.
And it's our job to take care of Dad's body because he's on a journey back to his home, and that's where we're going to bury him. So back in Dannevirke in New Zealand. So we're in Australia at this point. I don't know if I mentioned that. Yes. And so a lot of that happened throughout the whole process. I was trying to be one step ahead with the kids, warn them what was coming. So I, along with Brad's 2 brothers and my mum and his mum, we went to dress Brad's body. And that I made the decision that the kids weren't going to come for that part. But Kanem wanted to be involved. And so I said to him, well, your uncles are coming half an hour after we go because they're going to help bring Dad's body back to our house. If you want to be involved in that, you can. You need to let this uncle know. Mm. And he did. He watched that uncle for that whole half an hour. And then when it looked like he was ready to go, he said, I'm coming with you. And so he came. And they brought our dog as well. But Ryder stayed at home for that one. And so then Kanem got to see the coffin. Brad, by this stage, was in the hearse when Kanem turned up. Brad used to take the kids walking, and every time he did, he would get them to pick flowers for Mum and bring them home. And there was one single rose on his coffin, and Kanem was like, that's for you, Mum. That's your rose. And so we brought Brad home, explained in the car ride to Kanem about what was going to happen next, that Dad's body's in there. We're going to bring him inside. We're going to take the lid off the coffin. But I chose to do that with just a handful. I think it was only 5 of us in the room when we took the lid off for the first time. That was important for me because I wanted my kids, they were going to have to see, they're going through something huge. So let's do it in the gentlest way that we can, without an audience, in their home that they feel comfortable in. And so we did that. But I'd let everybody know that the kids run this show. If they don't want to be in the room, they don't have to be. This is their journey, and we're not going to pressure them to do anything they don't want to do. And so when the lid came off, Kanem didn't like it. He didn't he just said, I don't like seeing dad like that. And I said, that's okay. If you don't want to be in the room, you don't have to. And so he left to play outside. Ryder, on the other hand, just wanted to, little 1.5-year-old wants to climb all over dad's body. So two different versions. But again, I was like, that's okay. This is his dad. If that's what he wants to do, then that's what he's going to do. And so Brad stayed with us for 2 nights, and that was important for me too. Originally, it was going to be one. I decided, no, it's going to be two, because I want the kids to have a real opportunity for, if Kanem does change his mind and does become comfortable around his dad's body, then we're going to give him the space and time to do that. And that's one memory that Kanem has. We spoke about it recently, that he remembers sleeping on the couch with his uncle while I was down, we're next to the coffin with Ryder. And what I'm really proud of is when we talk about that moment, there's no, what's the word? Negative emotions around it. It just he's not fearful of that situation, because he was given the time and space to do what he needed to do. And by day 2, he was down on the mattress with us next to his dad, and it wasn't a problem. And then he took on a role of, because we had to move Brad from our home to the funeral home to then get on the plane. So it was kind of self-appointed job to put all the screws on the lid of the coffin. And throughout the course, because we had moved Brad a couple of times, that's what Kanem did. And another thing that sticks out for me during that time, I saw a photo recently, and we had Brad at his family home as well in Dannevirke before we moved him to the marae. And it was his uncles that were carrying him out of the home to the vehicle to take him to the marae. And little, almost 3-year-old Kanem is standing in there between two of his uncles with his dad's coffin on his little shoulder, like carrying that out. And as sad as that was to see, because like no child that should not ever have been part of their reality, it's just given me a glimpse into like the man that Kanem is going to be. And the boy that I see in him now, that, when it's tough, he's your guy. He has that inner strength in him to be able to complete these tasks like that. But so the support team that I had around me, like I was the decision maker, but I didn't do anything. Like my sister-in-law, she took care of all the ins and outs of booking us flights, getting Brad on a flight, the funeral director, all the things, so many things that I just don't even know about, that I didn't need to worry about. And that meant that I could focus on me, the children, the plan. We didn't have a plan. Because this wasn't supposed to happen. He was 31 when he died. I was 35, and that was not, but some really cool things. So I'd made a point of, quite early on, okay, these are the cards I've been dealt. I can't change these cards. So I'm going to play the hand the best that I can. And so during this time, like during the tangi time, I turned my attention quite firmly on, where is the good here? What can I see that is going on? Like the sadness was still there. Like it wasn't to distract myself from that, but it was to, okay, let's get the full experience. There's goodness and there's happiness here too. Where is it? And I saw it with my support crew, with the people that came, with everybody doing everything that I didn't need to. It was there. And when I went to dress Brad, I spoke to one of the funeral directors, and he's wearing these cufflinks and they had Hulk on them. And I said, oh, interesting cufflinks. What made you decide to wear them today? He said, oh, I've had them for ages, but I don't know. Today was the day to wear them. I haven't worn them for a long time. said, oh, well, that's interesting because my kids call their dad Daddy Hulk Smash. And so it was like a little sign because leading up to dressing Brad, I was like, Brad, this is big. Like, I need you now. I need your support to do this. This is a big thing for me. And then that was the little, because I was looking wider than just the
Yeah.
sadness, I could see the little message of like, I've got you, you can do this. It's gonna be okay. Um, Now Brad and I weren't married. Um, we kind of done, we did things our way, but we were definitely like getting married was on the cards, and we had planned out where and what it was going to look like. We just hadn't locked in when, or like, the funds, all the things to go with, like, but we had the idea, we knew it was happening. But because we couldn't do that, part of one of my things of like, okay, what do I need? I went and bought myself the engagement ring that Brad was supposed to buy me because I was always doing his jobs for him anyway. It wasn't anything new. And walking into that shop, again, this knowing of like, it's that one. That's the ring. That's the one that he would have gotten for me. That's my ring. And so when I dressed Brad, I had time with him on my own once he was dressed in his outfit. And I had taken some wool out of slippers that both boys had worn, and they were the colours of his AFL, his Aussie rules football team. And there were 4 strands, and I did a little 4-plait. And it was 1 strand for me, the boys, and our dog, and then Brad was to wear this. And so we had a little like exchange of rings ceremony, and I put that plait string that I had made him and tied it around his finger. And that was our little way of like tying the knot. So
Yeah.
um yeah, like I said, we do things our way. That's what we did. Um yes. And so that yeah, I guess that sort of sums up the Tangi period. And that was actually the easy part. I've found out. I've since found out. So it was from when he died to when we buried him, it was a 2-week process because of where he had died and getting his body back. And then that was only to Perth. And then we still needed to come home and
Yeah.
everything. The next day, because there were no more jobs to do, that's when reality hits you. That's when that momentum of, okay, well, the next day we've got to do this. And then it's this job. Okay, well, we've buried him now and we've done the jobs. And so I woke up that day with the deepest sadness I've ever known because now, and I thought, here's the time. Like, this is where I thought I was digging in over the 2 weeks. Like, no, this is where the real stuff happens. And the interesting thing with grief is that I found, and maybe it's a protection thing of your body or yourself, I'm not sure, but when I thought I'd hit the depths of it, I hadn't. Like, I just hit the depth of what I could handle at that time. And then another wave of grief would come. And now we're talking like, months and months on. And it would take you even deeper, and you would think, how can I get back from this place? And so all this love that I spoke about earlier that I had for Brad, it had turned to grief, like, and sadness, and just this, like, when I look at it, I think that's not the price you pay, but that's the flip side of love. Like, and the harder you love, the bigger the love, the deeper the love, then the same goes for the grief. And it was a long journey. And I just remember hoping, like, will the grief ever turn back into love again? Because it felt consuming at times too. And at one point, I just decided, you know what, not this week. And so I just decided, like, I took the imaginary backpack of grief off and I just put it down. And I was like, no, I'm sick of wallowing in this. I need a week off. And so I took a week off and then came back and put it back on. But I guess it was just a period of like, I need to fill my cup. Like, where is the light? I need something. But the light was always there. And I'm so thankful for my children because they were the thing that kept me going every day. Because they had to be fed, they had to be cleaned, they had to, like, I would have quite happily, like, if it was just me looking after myself, I would have, like, not worried about any of that. But because it was my babies and they needed that, then that's what they got. And just by them being them, they were the light that guided me through.
Yeah.
And then over time, I found this inner light that I had all along, but didn't know because it's never been tested before. Like, and I found the strength that we all have, like this strength and, the strength and the power of a woman, like that's available to all of us. But it just was never, I was never put in a position where I needed to test it. But I found it and I pulled on it a little bit and a little bit more and a little bit more. And now when I look back from here, from this point, and I look back at the girl, like I was a woman, but I feel like I was a girl. I feel like I've had so much growth since then. And I just think back to her who got that knock on that door on that day. And I just, if I could, I would give her the biggest hug and be like, I am so proud of you because you are amazing and you did this. Like, you are climbing that mountain and you are doing the things. And all, like, you definitely had support. It was not a one man journey. I had the support team there. But you put one foot in front of the other. And I am in awe of what you've been able to achieve. And then to realize that, like, that's me. It's not like I did all those things. And so I've found this real love of myself. Because remember, I didn't have to love myself. Brad did that for me. And so for a long time, I had to look at myself the way that Brad would and be that support, like, well, what would Brad think about me doing this? Oh, he'd think you're amazing. Okay, cool. And then I had to look at myself the way that my children look at me as well. But over time and through this journey, I see myself the way that they see me. And but I mean that in the most humblest of ways.
Yeah.
But we can all do that. Like, it's not restricted just to, there's nothing. I am special, but we're all special.
Yeah.
And and I think I would love it if more people could realize the power that they had all along, the strength that they had all along.
Yeah.
It's just it would be, the world would be a better place for it, I think. And we
And
could achieve so much more than we ever thought we would. Because you know what? At the beginning of this, I couldn't look to the next day and imagine what it was like without knowing that Brad wasn't going to be in it, let alone like to our future. I was in a place of, I I can think of what I'm doing right now. I can focus on this task here, but I can't to think about, oh, we're going to sit down and have dinner next, but Brad's not going to be there. Like, I can't do that. I need to
Yeah.
just, so I was deeply rooted in the present moment, because anything more than that was too much. I couldn't, like, I went from a fully functioning adult to I couldn't do anything on my, the only thing I could do was like manage myself, manage my children. Everything else happened around me. People washed my clothes, they fed us, I had a friend living with us for like quite a while, and I would go to bed and the house would be a mess. But I would wake up and she had come in and cleaned everything, like fresh start, brand new day. And it was like all those things like that, oh, that just mean the difference. And I had such good examples too of like how to how to help people when they're in this time. Because I was never good at that, because I always thought, no, no, I'll just get in the way, or I don't want to intrude, or I don't want to do the wrong thing. And but you
Yes.
know what? Just be there. Like, that's all you need to be. Just be there. And don't take it personally. Like, if you be there and it wasn't the good time, then that's okay. Like,
Mm.
just be there another time.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, those would be my big things. And another thing with my boys that I can see now. So 5-year anniversary was at the beginning of the year. And I had thought, I got it. Like, it's all good. Every year's gotten, I wouldn't say it's gotten easier, but I've gotten stronger. So it's integrated into our lives more. But this leading up to the 5 year, and I've always like openly talked about how we're feeling, like how I'm feeling with the boys, so that they are welcome to do that with me. Like, nothing is ever off topic. If it needs to be talked about, especially if they drive it, then we talk about it. But leading up to Brad's anniversary, I just had this really heavy feeling, and we're at dinner, and I just said to the kids, "Oh, I think I'm really missing Dad." And they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay." And I'm like, "Yeah, it just I feel sad." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And then like the next day, I'm like, "You know what? That feeling's getting heavier." And they're like, "Oh, you know, Mum, it's okay to miss Dad." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, I know. Just sharing how I'm feeling." And then by the third day, it just like this, it felt like out of nowhere, the grief turned back up in like full force. And I just broke down, like sobbing, all the things. And the boys, bless, they, Ryder finds me first. And I hear, "Kanem, you better come here." And so Kanem walks in. And then they are like, "Are you missing Dad, Mum?" And I'm nodding my head. "It's okay to miss Dad." Both of them. "It's okay to miss Dad. We miss Dad too." I feel Ryder get a blanket, and he puts a blanket on me. And Kanem gets me some tissues. And then they both like rub my back for a little bit. And then Ryder goes, "Okay, think we better go fold the washing for Mum." So then they go and they fold my washing. And I'm like, I'm sobbing, but they're not afraid of it. And they just held this space so beautifully. And it was such a lesson for me on like, wow, this feels safe. This is what it feels like when people hold space for you. And that's all you need to do. And they would just come and check on me, and "Are you okay? You okay?" And then as it unfolded, whether them saying what I went through, and it sort of gave them permission, I don't know, but they both went through their own um struggles of like really missing Dad. But through them showing me how to hold the space, I was able to hold that for them as well.
Mm.
Um, and it's hard every time they miss their dad, like you just want to take it away, but you can't. And so instead, I just sit in it with them,
Mm.
sit there with them and let them feel their feels and get it out how they can. And I never say that I understand how they're feeling, because I don't, because I lost Brad, like I lost my partner, my husband, I lost him in that sense, but I don't know what it's like to lose him as a dad. I know what it's like to feel him not being here and his loss, but yeah, so there's a lot of, you know, empathy with them, and that I miss him too. And I would like, you know, all those types of things. But yeah, and amongst all of that, we also, because it was a car accident, there was a like major crash investigation was involved in finding out what happened. There was a lawsuit. The driver was charged with manslaughter. And that was a whole new realm of things for me to navigate as well, like just in the legal sense of, so in the early days, I had to meet with the detective. Like I've never had to do that before in my life. And then I sit down with him, and I felt like I was being interrogated. Like, what did you know? And what do you like? All these questions thrown at me. I was like, I wasn't even there. Like, I wasn't even involved. Why do I feel now? Suddenly, I feel like I'm to blame. Like, it was, yeah, that was quite an intense situation. And then, because we moved countries, a lot of like the sentencings and things that happened when I was living in New Zealand, but I attended that via video link. And that was quite intense too. So the driver was charged. Yeah, he pled guilty, and he was sentenced to 3 years in prison. With but he's ended up serving a year and a half, and then out on parole. So that was also like a really interesting space to navigate too, as well as like our own growth, as well as moving countries and like uprooting everything, and as well as we'd gone from a parenting team, and Brad had his natural role and I had mine, and together we worked and we knew how to navigate the parenting space. But then all of a sudden it was just me. And what does that look like? Like, part of the way that Brad parented was because of the person that he was. So that wasn't fully in line with the person that I am. And how do I even do this, and what does it look like? And yeah, so that was quite tough. And that was a really long process, because I had to go all the way to, well, what are my soul parenting values? What is my wish for my children? Like, what am I trying to achieve here? Because, I naively, when I first had kids, thought you just have to love them and like feed them and keep them safe. And that's it. But it's so much more intricate than that. Um, yeah. And so trying to navigate that was particularly hard. And because no one else in this world loves your children now like you do. Before, there were two of you that, like, no matter what, loved your child unconditionally. And now it's just you. And there was no one to sound ideas off. And it was such an unknown space for me, too. Like, I mean, parenting was anyway, but at least I had a partner in it. Doing it on my own was, yeah, that was really difficult. And luckily, from moving to New Zealand, we eventually ended up at Meadle House, which is where I met you. And you and that space that they hold at the kindy for not just the child, but for the, well, parents, but for me, for the mother as well. And the knowledge that is held there and so freely given if you ask was just so invaluable, and just really like helped me to take the shortcuts. People, you guys had the answers, and I took the suggestions and tested them out, and every time they worked, rather than trying to find that stuff on my own. Like, that would have been, I'd still be searching probably for the right fit for us had I not been able to surround myself with a kindy and people that truly cared about my children and about me.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
So that's super grateful that I found that. And so that kindy will always have a special place in my heart because they just nurtured me and my children so well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my story.
Yeah. It's big, isn't it? It's yeah, I'm in awe of you, Kylie. I always have been, but I like there are layers in there that I um didn't know, and it's just yeah. Yeah, I am in awe of how you've held yourself throughout this whole journey and allowed yourself to go into those spaces that you needed to go into. When so many people wouldn't allow their children perhaps to see them in that space of grief like you're in after the anniversary, and just trusting that your children could hold that space. It's not like you thought, oh, they'll hold space. You're not consciously thinking that, but the reciprocity in the relationship and the sharing and the openness has been from the get-go. So they knew you've always held them and kept them safe and loved them and supported them. And so that's the modeling. That's what they did. And they did it beautifully by the sounds of it. So
Yeah.
it's such credit to you. But also I think the team of you and Brad looks very different now, but it's still there's still
Yes.
that support. And I know with Ryder, when I was with him, he was experiencing Brad as well. Dad's there. And he'd come in the form of the little monarch butterfly, or there was that noticing that you're talking about when you first met Brad, and he'd be in awe of everything and notice everything, that beautiful childlike quality that we forget. But he obviously was able to still harness, which is so
Mm.
beautiful. But that is what your children
Yeah.
can still do. And that's what Ryder was doing. So he was this big, strong boy with this biggest, most beautiful heart, and that love coming through Brad to him, and he could notice, with his big, big little hands holding the little worm or whatever it was. He had that deep compassion for any living thing, and just it's so beautiful. But that is the team that's working now, growing your boys
Yes.
up.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well,
I think the other thing, like, I've learnt as well is about love. Like we said, this was a story about love, and it comes in so many shapes and forms. And so, like, Brad and I didn't love his body, right? So if his body died, but I loved his soul, like his spirit, his wider world. Like that's where the love connection is.
yeah,
And that's not dead. Like that is still alive and strong and will through the lifetimes has been strong and will continue to
yeah,
because me and the boys call it a heart to heart connection. Like we're all our hearts are all connected and we just tug on that golden thread and we know that each
mm,
other is there. Um, and so, yeah, like when Brad would go to work for 2 weeks, I didn't stop loving him because his body wasn't there, like in
yeah,
my face.
yeah,
It's that has no bounds. And yeah, these last 5 years have really shown that for me. And it's almost evolved the love even deeper still because it is that unbreakable bond. But then in saying that, love is limitless as well.
Mm.
It's not like I can hold that love for Brad in its entirety and still have space to hold my love for Carnum in its entirety, and same for Ryder and all the other people, for everybody,
Yeah.
because it's infinite. It's not going to run out. Um, and that's probably a big lesson for me as well, is that you don't have to monitor your love, and it's not measurable because it has no end.
That's so well said and beautifully put, because it's exactly right. It is limitless, and it's trying to, when I talk to parents about love, and you actually mentioned it before, I thought, you just love them and feed them and they're okay. But it is love, but it goes beyond realms. It's the true essence of unconditional. And whatever
Mm,
that's not just in the physical, it transcends time. And it's this, and when children experience, or anybody, not just children, when we experience unconditional love, we can feel safe and we know how to be held in a space or hold space. And this is what your boys did. They know that
yeah,
they are loved unconditionally and they love you in the same way. And yeah, you could hold space. They could hold space for you because they're safe. If they
yeah,
didn't feel safe, they were like, what do we do? And, there'd be a panic. And some would go straight into, no, 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 it's about me. I can't give you that because you have to give that to me. But I mean, that's what I mean when I first met little Ryder and his big, beautiful heart. It's just so calm as well. But I have a stronger relationship with Ryder because I was teaching him. So yeah, it's just incredible. An incredible story of love beyond bounds and anything's possible, and your journey and how you've navigated this time. Like there were probably so many potential timelines there. You could have gone down so many various
yeah,
paths,
yeah,
and
yes.
I'm just, yeah, like I said, incredibly in awe of you. And so I have a lot of love for you. I'm so proud of you as well. And just to be able to have the courage, and you too, Tama, yes. But to have the
Yeah,
courage,
there he is.
to have the courage to come on and share this beautiful story, as sad as it is, but it's so beautiful and so loving, and that
Mm,
and it continues. It's not the end. It's a chapter, but the book's
yes.
not closed and it's still going, and you're um creating the chapters with your boys as you continue on day by day, week by week, month by month, and knowing that presence of Brad's still there, so that it's still there. Yeah. Oh,
Mm,
um,
yeah, that's it.
you did mention earlier that not long before Brad had passed, you'd started a meditation practice. Is that is that something that you
Yes,
continue? Where does that fit in for you now?
yes. So that um it's Vedic meditation
Mm.
that I do. And it's a practice where 20 minutes a day, twice a day, you sit down, you get given a mantra that is specific to you. So not everyone would have the same one. And you close your eyes and you think that mantra, and it takes you where you need to go. And then you forget that mantra, and it doesn't matter because that wasn't the mantras, the repeating of the mantra is not the point. It's the vehicle to get you to the space that you
Mhm.
need to go to. Um, and I definitely still practice that as regularly as I can. So sometimes I'll miss a day here and there, but I continue doing it because it works, because it's held such value. Like, so I wouldn't be able to sit here and talk to you now about this without the meditation, we'll say, fast tracking me through that journey.
Mm.
We'd be having this conversation in another 5-10 years time,
Mm.
because I wouldn't have been able to get to that point, because what it does is it systematically takes the stress out of your body, from your whole lifetime.
Yeah.
Some stress we can assimilate and things happen within our bodies, and our bodies can release it themselves. And then Vedic meditation comes along and cleans it up. And from doing that, life is easier. And you have more time. And it's because you're not clouded by the stresses. It's the stress in your body that has you react to certain situations in certain ways. It's the stress that stops you from seeing like what's right in front of you. And so if you can just systematically get rid of that, over time, like, yeah, you'll feel better. Um, and it's a gift for yourself, but it's a gift for those around you. And I noticed that when I first started meditating, I was the only person meditating in the house. But Brad was feeling better, the kids were feeling better. We were like, the harmony within our home was so much better just from me practicing. And, as a mum, when you look at it, like, it's hard to do things for yourself, but it's going to benefit your children as well,
Mm-hmm.
then you do it. And that's why I stuck to it so tightly as well, because when early on and when Brad died, I was like, how can I help my kids? What do I have to do to help my kids? And the answer was, help yourself.
Yeah.
They are so tightly linked to your nervous system
Mm-hmm.
that if you can help yourself, by default, you are helping them. And when I heard it that way, I was like, okay, how can I help me? Like, if it's going to have a flow-on effect, and if this is the best way that I can help them, I will do what needs to be done. And so now the children have their own meditation practice. They have their own personalized mantras, but because their bodies are younger, the stress in their bodies are not as much. They don't have to do it for as long, and they can do it with their eyes open. And it's just a little tool in their kit of things that they can pull out to help them when they need it.
Yeah.
But they know. They're like, Mum, did you meditate today? And I'll be like, no, I haven't. Okay, you've noticed that? Yeah, I think you should go and meditate. And they really respect the practice. And the great thing about this practice is that it doesn't have to be a quiet room. It doesn't have to be a certain temperature. You can do it anywhere you want while the dog's barking.
Yeah.
As an
Yeah.
example, while the children are climbing over you. Yeah, I've always done it in front of the kids because I wanted them to see that I'm taking time to do something for me that is good for me, that ends up being good for them as well. But yeah, and so they, even now in the mornings, if I'm meditating, they'll just come and just sit on me and just cuddle in while I meditate. And it's a great way to start the day, to ease them gently into the day. Yeah, so no, very strongly love
Mm.
that practice, and that was my lifeline. And yeah, you try the things, and if they work, you keep doing them. And I'm 5 years in now, so it's definitely working. I definitely keep doing it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you
Yes.
said, it is tools in each of our toolkits, but particularly for your children, because as they navigate, the next phases when they go into teenagehood and all of that they have something that they can call on and draw on to regulate themselves, because it's often what children don't always know how to do, or they rely on an adult to do it for them. But to be able to have a tool themselves to do that is really important.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they get to, like us as an adult. I mean, you found it at the age of, your mid-30s, and you're like, if only I'd found this earlier, because
Yeah.
it would have been
Yeah.
so why not provide our children with the tools earlier, whatever they are, just so that they can regulate, they can get themselves back into that place of, being in their bodies again and getting to the point of responding rather than reacting.
Yes.
The journey of a young child, though, of course, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
I find it fascinating, really, that it was given to you. The timing was pretty incredible that this came into your orbit, even the practice of this meditation.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yes. And I was very, yeah, I'm aware of how lucky I am with that, because a lot of the time with this meditation, people find it when they've already hit the bottom, like, I don't know, highly stressful jobs and everything's falling apart, and and then it comes to them. But I was
yeah,
lucky enough to get it a little bit earlier so that I could, enjoy the
yeah,
benefits of it with our family, and then have it help carry me through
yes, because
what
you
was
had
to come.
you had the experience and the memory of how well this works. So otherwise, if it had been given to you after Brad had passed, then you might have been like, I don't need, it's too hard. How do I even start? Because it is hard to start
Yeah.
something new when you're in
Yeah.
navigating grief like that, and depending on the wave that you're currently in. And like you said, it's up and down and up and down, and it's never linear, and it never always makes sense. Like when it rears up in
Mm.
a big way, or I mean, right now, yeah, you're just how you share your story so beautifully. But I think again, you've got strength behind you because you're articulating everything so perfectly, and we, the listeners, can feel. We can feel it, and we can experience it with you and understand it. Yeah. So, oh, yeah, it's beautiful, Kylee. Is there anything else you wanted to add in, or is it a to be continued?
Um, yeah, no, I've got a one little thing that popped up
Uh-huh.
um that helped give me strength too. And that was, there's this view, like in the Vedic worldview, that children choose their parents.
Mm-hmm.
So when they choose the body that they are going to be born into, and knowing that it was likely that they knew that when they were making their choice, it was only their dad for in his body for a short time and me for the rest of it, I thought, wow,
Yeah.
they believe in me. Like, they knew that and they still chose me.
Mm-hmm.
So if they believe, I can do it.
Yeah.
And that really helped, having that knowledge,
Yeah.
to
I
think,
love that.
you know,
It is, it's
yeah,
just so beautiful. It's exquisite. It's got full body, up and down chills, still going, because that's a very much a yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. If, of course, if they can do
yeah,
it, they believe in you, then of course. And I love that you've got to that
yeah,
place where you are believing in yourself and you are loving yourself. And it's so beautiful. It's such a good example of, life is beautiful, and yet it's finding those little sparkles, because they're there. The magic is there. And I
yeah,
guess, and that's one of the many things that Brad has left, is that find the magic in everything, because he
yeah,
obviously did that himself. And yeah, it's interesting you've even come around, being in a walled off environment where that's very much, we believe in fairies
yes,
for sure.
yes,
Well, me for sure. Like, and that's where you've kind of landed, but you've landed in this place where it's all about reverence of the child and of nature and this
mm,
awe and wonder of all that is. And it's so in alignment. But that's where, I mean, you probably didn't know when you left where you're going to land exactly in terms of schooling and education
yes,
and that type of thing. So,
yeah,
yeah. yeah, a lot of divine guidance going on. It's beautiful. I love it. And like you said, you had the
Yes. Yeah.
capacity to notice when you had allowed that slightly bigger view. You were able to notice the like the cufflinks, those little messages, those little
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
Because often
Yeah.
it's so true. We don't, even if it's not even going through a grieving process, we're still so caught in like busyness or whatever it is. We don't notice those little
Yeah.
messages or cues that are always there, always there. We just have
Always
to,
there. Yeah.
yeah. And, mm, and you're able to do that, and your children do it so beautifully as well. So, what a beautiful little team. Thank
Mm.
you so much for sharing that. It's just what a gift for all of us receiving this. Is there anything else that you do now other than your meditation, which is wonderful, that also keeps your soul full, a soul filling practice for you?
Yes. It's not something I do, but it's something I've noticed that gives me that feeling, that good feeling. And that's when, at the moment, it's when I see people doing what they were meant to be doing,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I see you doing this podcast, that fills me with warmth because I'm like, yes, this is one of the many things that you were meant to do. When I see people standing in their power, um, and saying like, no, I don't agree, that
Mm.
brings me warmth. Um, yeah, standing up for what they believe, like just having that little bit of strength to say, or holding boundaries. I'm a real, like at the moment, I love it when I see people hold boundaries, even if they're holding their boundaries up to me. I even love that more because I'm like, yes, this is like, I want to see more of that. So that's what's happening in the world at the moment. That's bringing me a little bit of joy.
Mm. Beautiful. And you're
Mm.
also so good at noticing those things in another, but you are able to turn the mirror back on them and show them, because you're very good at, you don't just notice it, you put voice to it if it's appropriate. You know, I think you have sent me messages before
Mm.
saying, and it's so received with genuine. I know it's genuine. I know it's coming from your heart space, and again, that fills me up to think, oh, okay, I'm on the right track. And it's meeting, it's landing somewhere. So it's like that ripple
Yeah.
effect, and yeah. So, and I think that is one of your superpowers. You've got many, but really noticing and seeing another person, but you are able to give that, like turn that mirror on the person and give them that gift, like see what you can do or what you did, or you do it with your boys, obviously, but you do it with the adults around you too. So yeah, beautiful. Ah, thank you. This has been amazing, and what a gift for all who listen to this. I think there is so many little takeaways and all the different, yeah, in a relatively short journey, what a life you've lived, you know, and how much the listener
Yeah.
can, what we can gain strength and our own courage from hearing this incredible story, like such wahine tour. It's amazing, Kylie. So yeah, I'm pleased that you are loving yourself and proud of yourself, because I certainly am, and I know so many others are too. Um, yeah, okay. Well, we will continue this conversation another time. Until then, I'll say goodbye. Mm.
Thank you for having me.
Wow. Kylie's quite remarkable, isn't she? You might just need to gather yourself and take a few deep breaths after that, just to reset, because it's a lot. It's a lot to listen to, and you really felt that you're on the journey with her, and yeah, I could definitely feel feel everything. So she told that so beautifully, and gosh, with so much strength. But the strength, I do believe, she was drawing on from Brad and from her, wider team, because this is a story that is recorded and for anyone to listen to, for her boys, for her family, Brad's family, her friends, and she shared that so beautifully. Such a gift. And I left Tama barking in there because Tama, like Kylee mentioned, is their firstborn, and it's him being present, and I think it was just it was beautiful, actually, him just contributing his presence in there too. So that's why the dog barking is in there. I think you can have, your takeaways from this episode. I hope you feel inspired, and I hope you truly feel that message of love and that importance of unconditional love. And as a mother, that is not just for those around you, which we generally easily give and do, but it starts with ourselves. So putting that mirror back to ourselves and finding that self-love, really loving ourselves, so that we can show up and be that best person for our other people, for our children, for our family. And I just loved how Kylee shared that, and that the gift that she's experienced, that deep unconditional love from Brad, and still does, and she has so much love to give, and her children do too. Honestly, the biggest hearts you've ever come across. It's absolutely amazing. And I love that she was given this gift of meditation before Brad's accident and before he passed away, because it was, like she said, an anchor point and something that really did hold her through, and she still continues that practice today. And it's finding that thing for you as well, whether it be a form of meditation practice or something else that can really anchor you in and keep you in that space of recalibration and balance, I guess. So many beautiful things in there. And just do the things, do the things that keep you inspired and that you love to do, because like Kylee experienced, that one day and that one knock at the door completely changed her life forever. And we never quite know if that knock at the door ever may come. We don't. But we do know what can happen right now and what we do with our time right now. So, do the things that light you up, and love deeply, like Kylee has shared. So, if you feel like this episode might resonate with another, please share it with them. I think there's a lot here that can really be helpful, especially when we're in a current time of there's a lot of unrest with people at the moment. So this gives hope and inspiration, hearing stories like this. So please do share with anyone that you think may benefit from this. And in the meantime, have a really soul-filling day ahead, a soul-filling week, and I will see you again soon.